Good afternoon. I am of medium height. I have brown hair, blue eyes. I'm wearing a green jacket and dark jeans and wearing my favorite blue 100% recycled material sneakers. So nice to see you all. Let's get started. Here we go. So those are my two boys. They're a bit bigger now. I live in Brooklyn, New York, but I grew up in Damerscott, Maine. So it's been fun to get to know this part of your country because it feels a little bit like where I grew up on the coast. Very lovely to be here with you all. I am really passionate about changing streets and changing them quickly. And I got a taste for this early in my career as a young person in Miami. More than 15 years ago, working on some initiatives that led me to bike advocacy and starting with a bunch of other advocates an open streets program where I saw the potential of the city's main street to be something more than it was and slowly saw that come to fruition. To me, that was addictive. So all of our work since has been about helping cities and communities transform their streets together. So that's what we do at Street Plans. We're urban designers, we're engineers, we're landscape architects, we're planners. But at the end of the day, we are trying to co-facilitate change in our communities to make them more inclusive, safe, and exciting places to be. And so this is a talk I've never given before, in terms of new perspectives. And TJ even said last night, is that really Mike's title of his talk? I don't know a whole lot about AI, I'll be honest with you. But I want to think about, how does our work get impacted by this? How does the field get impacted by this? And answer some of those questions in a way to kind of put it back out for you all to consider as well, since this is really a newer topic in our field. And of course, there'll be more exploration of this in the next panel. But I get very disheartened when I see these images. I saw these images, back in 2005, 6, as the smart city was taking off. I saw that 10 years later when self-driving cars are going to fix all of our urban ills and our congestion problems. I've seen these images on the post sort of COVID city, and now you've got the AI vision. It's the same thing. And what is missing in that picture? People, exactly. You guys are all very astute. And so this idea of this rapidly mutating, changing, evolving city in real time, isn't that cool? I don't want to live there, and you may not either. And so this summer I picked up a book called "A City Is Not a Computer," written by Sharon Mattern, and she's really debunking this idea of the dashboard mentality, that we can control everything, understand everything all at once, and link everything together as data flows. And while some of that can certainly be helpful in our work and inform our work as tools, as planners and designers, the urban intelligence that is found in our libraries, our parks, our squares, our streets, she argues, and I would agree, is far greater and can be even more responsive to local need. And also, cities are about strange things, the outliers, the whimsy, the creative. I just love that image of the right. It's the beer can tree that I found in Ho Chi Minh City while on my honeymoon. So I reflect back, the work of urban acupuncture and Jaime Lerner, who was the mayor of Curitiba, Brazil for a long time, where he talks about, the arrogance behind the ability to control and connect and predict everything in a city. That is not what a city is. And I'm hopeful that we don't pursue a future with new technologies where that becomes the goal primarily in the distribution of the technology. But as I've read more and more about this, I'm seeing these views start to change. So sort of the breathless predictions of what AI will deliver for us in the next 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, turning into a little bit more of we've always adapted and brought in new technology. It usually takes a long time. In fact, it becomes normal over time on how we adopt these technologies into our work, into our lives, and into the way we move around a city. And so this report was quite interesting, where they're laying out this case of we're in control of this now. We can control it moving forward. We shouldn't be planning our physical and social cities around just this one approach. And to me, this is about keeping our cities human. Right? We need to have humans in the human-made city, and I think that is where certainly the tools can be useful for efficiency purposes, but when you lay out a vision of the future, I'm much more excited about that than I am the towers and the flying whiz-bang cars around the whole place. Some of my images are not coming through, unfortunately, but I want to share a few things from our work that I think reflect back on where things are with AI and how we use this and shape cities moving forward. And the first thing I found to be quite humorous is this. I read a report about AI complaining about the human bottleneck, right? And if you think about that, it's only humans are going to get in the way of the technology, let the technology do its thing and take over. But the real view of how cities work is political, not technological. And I think if I understood that as a young planner, as a young person, my career would have been better informed from the beginning, that it's politics that shape everything. You have to understand how your city works politically to be able to enact change in the mid and long term, right? So if you think about what's happening in America, what's happening in America, we're seeing so much mistrust, right, amongst each other. And that's a major, major issue. And I think that part of that is we've built these systems that just aren't working. They're not catching up to our modern needs, as was said earlier today. This sort of alternative view, which you may agree or disagree with all or some of Ezra Klein's work around abundance, but I think they've put their finger on something that there's just so much focus on the process and not the outcomes, right? What can we do to get to the outcomes that we desire, that we put into our beautiful planning documents, our research studies, our programs and policies? We got to get things delivered to build that trust and build the outcomes that we, I think, are looking to achieve, whether it's resilience, it's inclusion, it's safety. And so our work has long been about that, right? How can we include tactics that inform or help implement strategies to get change happening? How do we break through, to some degree, that human bottleneck of politics to show what's possible? Because so often people are responding to the idea in their head about something changing in their community, and they need to see it and live it themselves to understand it. And so that's the first lesson, is breaking through that human bottleneck. Number two, to do that effectively, we've got to rethink how we think about delivering projects. And so our systems are set up to think about, fund, and deliver long-term, big, complicated, and expensive projects. We think you got to break those down in different ways, from the hyper cheap and cheerful of a demonstration project through truly testing and evaluating what works and what doesn't work to inform those investments in the long term to be much more intelligent, to use that human intelligence in the way that things get used to help deliver that long-term infrastructure. I won't get into the details of that, but there's a whole system that we've built out that looks at how to intervene and where and for how long. And in short, right, you can't automate the power of participation. When you have a way for people to get engaged, change their community in a positive way, and at least look at something in real time and say, does this work or does this not work? Let's fight over something that's real, not something that's imagined, is really the methodology there. And we've seen that to be very, very effective. Lesson 3, subversion advances society, right? The outliers inform and push us to do things differently. And I can tell you, being a bit of an outlier 15 years ago and starting a lot of our tactical work, nobody was asking for this. And now it's become much more adopted and centralized and part of the way people think about change making. So I respect and I want to see more of the outsiders getting to influence what happens on the inside. And you can go back in history and find all these amazing examples of this. Like, speaking of Paris, along the banks of the Seine, the bouquinistes were those who were illegally selling goods on the bridges of Paris, got pushed to the edge of the quay along the major part of the Seine in the core of the city, and over a period of 400 years went from being unsanctioned to sanctioned lightly to regulated to now being included. The green boxes along the Seine are included in UNESCO World Heritage designation of the banks of the river. That's an unsanctioned to sanctioned timeline of hundreds of years, but I'm seeing this get compressed and happen much faster in more recent history. So from Bonnie Orr Shirk's portable parks in San Francisco, which really predates a lot of the pavement to parks, parklet work that communities are doing, to Claire Morissette in Montreal, who was out there painting bike lanes in the middle of the night. Think about where Montreal is now. Think about its reputation, how much work they continue to advance with active transport. You can think the outlier, the subversion of painting this stuff in the middle of the night and how that was the seed that brought in that transformation. Or intersection repair in Portland, Oregon, which is so inspirational to me and a lot of my colleagues, which has manifested into work that we do around the world with Bloomberg on helping communities figure out how to transform their streets even if temporarily, and making them look beautiful too. To this fun, quick study of Hamilton, Ontario. Some of you might know Graham McNally. He called me up to Hamilton in 2011 and said, we're having a problem getting the city's attention. We want safer streets. So we workshopped with a bunch of people, very quick, cheap, cheerful intervention, and it really raised eyebrows in Hamilton. The city cracked down, there was pushback, then the advocates pushed back, and they said, well, you're being ridiculous, cones aren't illegal or they're not unsafe, and they created these sort of tongue-in-cheek social media campaigns. Yes, it's funny. And then all of a sudden it became this in the CBC News, right? So this became more national news here in Canada. Well, now we're going to negotiate with these tactical urbanists. To then in 2018, this headline in Curb that, now Hamilton is this really cool, creative city that has done so much in the public space, in the public realm, to think about ways to include artists, to include community members in making streets and public spaces better. So again, unsanctioned to sanctioned, sort of that outlier to insider sort of process. Lesson 4, we can deliver wellness. So this is how I'm going to get back to wellness quickly. This is one of our projects on the Cleveland waterfront where they have a grand vision for millions and millions of dollars to go into a lakefront park. The people of Cleveland have long desired to have access to their lakefront. For years, it's been a parking lot next to a stadium that gets used 8 times per year. So this vision is something we've started to deliver on, where we have all sorts of physical activity, organized programming, sports, concerts. It's all kicked off in the first phase this past year. And it's really about helping people in the city connect to each other and connect to this big, big vision that's going to take the whole of Cleveland to get behind politically and financially to deliver. We see physical wellness is something we can deliver quickly through active transport projects, what we call quick build projects. The results of these can be pretty dramatic, just going from a 5-lane road down to 2. You can see the stats on that really quickly. And then there's the emotional wellness, and this gets to this loneliness bit. How many have seen the movie Her? Yeah, it's a pretty well-known film that sort of was predated or was predicting the way this technology with AI in terms of being able to have a companion who's not real but simulates a real human be part of our lives. But the research on this and the thinking is you just cannot replace human touch. You cannot replace humans overall as companions. And so as we also suffer from a loneliness crisis in America, I think a lot of it for the same reasons that you're suffering here in Canada, there's this impact, this health impact that I think has gone unnoticed until the last few years, and now people are starting to wake up and notice that everything from the way we built our cities to the way we build housing is causing isolation and it's having a much bigger impact than we originally thought. So can you impact this? Can you impact loneliness and can you improve wellness through temporary projects? I think you can at least prove out that if you take the temporary and make it permanent, you can. This was a project we worked on with Happy City. I don't know who Sam is here anywhere right now. He's at Happy City. Anyways, we worked on this with them on the waterfront in West Palm Beach, where we took something that was kind of drab and unused, and then we punched it up for a day, and we had a control group that walked through, and we did like a before and after study of how people responded to the space. And I won't get into a lot of the details because I'm out of time, but a lot of it shows this big increase in, decrease in stress, increase in trust, and you can change the way people feel and their wellness just by changing the amount of amenity or the way people can use the space. And I see a lot of that thinking on your waterfront here as well. Oh man, this is all messed up. Anyways, the 5th and final lesson is, you can never waste a crisis. In COVID recovery, you see here in New York City, we worked on this project in the Flatiron District on the left, which helped transform what you see in the upper right. From the program that started in the pandemic became something more interim, and now the street looks like this. And that transformation was unbelievably powerful for economic regeneration, for the amount of people who are staying and walking and being in this public space. Yes, great for restaurants, but also good for people not eating as well. And the response to this has been just massive uptake in demand for more of this kind of environment in the heart of our city. And so thinking about how you can move quickly and make those changes and set up things for the long term is all about the work that we do. So bringing it back to Halifax. I don't know very much about your city. I just got here yesterday. It's beautiful. I enjoyed the waterfront last night. Thanks for the walk, TJ. But I did do a little bit of reading about the history. And so, yes, I learned about the Great Explosion. And I want to offer to you as a concluding thought, a little twist on your famous, we shall never rebuild Halifax unless everybody works. Well, Halifax only works if it works for every, am I going to say this right, Haligonian? Right? So I think in that sort of twist, this is about inclusion of everybody. Your city is already a good city. It can be a great city if you think about its future. And to Robert's point, think about the young people who need to live here, work here, learn here, and eventually become the leaders of the city in the mid to long term. So with that, thank you very much.